Welcome to season 2, episode number 5 of
What's
Brewing Sis?
I'm Shelly.
I'm Bianca.
And I'm Deanna, and here we come together to serve the brew.
We're back. And we're back.
We are pushing these podcasts out.
Yes, see, we're like deep in season 2 now.
Yes, we are. We are deep into season 2 in the month of February.
Yes. Very special love month.
Yes, so this should be a very exciting month with guests. We definitely hope you guys enjoyed our last guest, Apostle Eric and Pastor Lisa Harris. They were amazing.
Yes, teaching us how to push beyond our fears and live faithfully and fearless.
I think they gave us some really good advice on how to stay calm.
Yeah, and I my takeaway is you are human. You're gonna have fear. No one's a robot where they don't have feelings and things are
anxiety and frustrations, all those
natural. But they kind of give the nuggets. But it was a lot of good stuff in there, and I think that it definitely helped me. And I'm sure it's something that could help a lot of people along their journey because, everybody's not at the same beginning point, but we're all going to get to the same end.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely go back and rewatch that episode as many times as you like.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you at a tough point, I like to watch stuff when I'm at a tough point to like remind me to keep the faith. So this is a good video to go back to when you're having a day. You go back to the video and like, all right, you know what? They're right.
Because what I said. It was like a good thing that I said. Yeah. So let me go back to what I said.
And like, comment, subscribe, share. Because you sharing this video might help someone else,
Yes.
Absolutely.
And leave us a comment, let us know what your thoughts or feelings are, after watching the video. So
absolutely. But so we have a brand new show today. We're really excited about this guest. We're gonna get this show pop-a-locking. So when you see us again, we'll be ready. We'll be ready with our guests. So enjoy this episode.
Enjoy.
Eros is a man that holds many titles: father, motivational speaker, spoken word poet, and mentor. A follower of his once said, Eros has the rare ability to touch your soul while simultaneously inspiring you to be a better version of yourself. I heard him once do a piece called Cry King, and it literally moved me to tears. I see great things in his future, and I know his work will continue to heal and inspire everyone who has an opportunity to hear him speak. Another follower expressed, this man's flow and intensity he puts into his words is unmatched. Everyone who enjoys spoken word should see Eros. And lastly, from a follower, one of the most amazing spoken word artists. He is literally the voice of the heart. If you ever had the privilege of hearing him speak, then you know how amazing he is at what he does. What's Brewing Sis podcast, brew crew, family, and friends, welcome to the show, Eros.
My name is Eros, so I study love a lot,
Well, hello.
Yo, peace and blessings, ladies. How are you?
We are doing great. Wow,
wonderful.
How y'all doing, Deanna?
Yeah. We are wonderful.
You guys got me blushing from that introduction. That was really nice.
I'm glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it's always good to see a Black man blush.
Amen.
All right.
That is the goal. So we are so excited to have you on the show. My first time experiencing your spoken poetry, your written word, was at an event. We share a mutual friend, LaShonda. I know she's your best.
My best friend. Yeah, absolutely.
She talks about her best friend. She loves her best friend. But Deanna, Bianca, we have a very similar relationship where we always have each other's back. We started this podcast together. So it's very enlightening to see what you guys share. I think that's beautiful. It's a very beautiful friendship.
Absolutely.
But I saw you first at her event, and I mean, a lot of bold things you would say, but you definitely got the room shaken. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was her the launch of her wine company, Legacy Libations. She had a beautiful launch event, and I think that night I shared Time for You, if I'm not mistaken, which is really just about doing exactly what LaShonda did that night, which was taking the time out for herself to pursue her business, pursue her dreams, and make it all come to fruition. And I think that, I was happy to share that, but also to inspire the next person, because we're all sitting on some business, some idea that we just haven't really spent the time to cultivate. And so just major kudos to her for stepping out on faith. And since she's done that, she's just been, blossoming with new business, new customers. She's an extremely dope human being. So yeah, I remember seeing you there too. And if I'm not mistaken, you were the graphic designer who created her labels for that. So there's some talent, extreme talent, right across the room from me. So,
Yes. So we kick our show off. We like to do some icebreakers. It's
okay.
just to kind of get the room moving, make you think, make you more comfortable. So we'll get started. In the last 6 months, what was the best thing you bought for yourself?
The best thing I bought for myself in the last 6 months will probably be my own copy of my book that I released in June. So I released a book in June called Love Notes by Eros, Volume 1. And it was just a compilation of poems that I had written. I self-published through Amazon. And I decided to, just buy myself a copy. I didn't buy the artist copy. This may sound weird to people, like as an author, you can purchase your own book at a discount. And you can just get them in bulk if you buy them in bulk. But I actually purchased it as a consumer.
Yeah.
And it was just, I wanted to experience the whole experience of getting like what the consumers would get, right? People who are fans of me and will read this book. And I've since then got a chance to really like delve into my work as a reader and not as the creator. And I've been having extreme fun with just critiquing my own work, asking myself questions that I don't really dig into the book. And I don't know, it's taken me on a different journey, and it's allowed me to see my art from a different perspective. So that's probably one of my best gifts I've given myself.
Self-reflection is great. So
Amen.
Absolutely. We've gone into the coffee business, and we've all purchased a bag of coffee. And I think that's so important for an entrepreneur to do, to take a step back and look at your product from a consumer.
100%.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
What about you, Bianca?
The last 6 months, the best thing I bought myself a new car. So my last car, God bless it. It lasted me for a while, but it was struggling in the snow. So I would get so nervous driving in the wintertime. So I was like, I need a new car. So that was the best thing I bought myself. I feel much safer now. So.
Very cool. What about you, Deanna?
I would say I've bought a few things. I actually purchased a car too, but I wasn't thinking like that was the best thing I bought, but it probably is. But I was more in tune to I've recently bought some really good, nice body butters and oils and things that I've been enjoying.
There you go.
Body butter oils?
Self-care.
With the whip.
I was going to say that, but I was thinking
we ain't gonna let this whip thing go. For me, it was my Apple Watch.
All right.
I needed it. My other one was slowly dying on me, but I needed a new one so I can get this workout thing going back again.
All right.
Sound like I'm on an interview with a bunch of ballers. Y'all buying cars and Apple Watches, and I just bought a book.
I needed a car. It was bad out here.
I'm currently paying for it in installments. So
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sure.
I'm balling out.
Guys, what random topic can you talk about all day long? Eros, we'll start with you.
I love to talk about the human experience when it comes to love. I'm real big on just discussing how we love, right? All these different ways, and that's all encompassing. I can go on love for probably days, weeks, as it relates to forgiveness and our relationship with God, our relationship with our children, with family, romance. You probably couldn't get me to shut up talking about it because I study it so much because it fascinates me.
That's good. Now my answer doesn't sound as deep. I
have a feeling that that's going to keep happening tonight.
I'm like, oh, the things that I could talk about randomly all day long is like interesting documentaries I see, you know, on TV. Like I'll watch stuff like how a company started, like how Kellogg's got its start and things like that. So when I watch those, it's like so fascinating to me that I could talk about that all the time.
Very cool. What about you, Deanna?
Like, what are the things I can talk about? I feel like we could probably answer that better saying it from each other's perspective. Like, what do I think you can talk about forever? But let's see. I could talk about a number of like financial principles on and on. I could talk about like natural hair care on and on. And I'll just stick with those two.
That's good.
But I feel like there's a whole plethora of things I could talk about on and on.
Yeah. For me, I will always talk about Cafe Coco Latte. I try to bring it up in every conversation. Eros, we're going into business together. We're looking to open up our own cafe soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I talk about that a lot. Politics, I can always talk about politics. So much so where I had to like take a rest from it. And then crime, murder, mysteries.
Whoa. Wait a minute.
I could talk about all day, like the who done it. That's
Note to self, Shirley might be on the episode of Snapped.
Right, exactly.
I have no plans on snapping on anyone, but I find it to be interesting, you know, how people get there.
Yeah.
So, who is your favorite poet?
That's such a difficult question to answer for me. Because inspiration just, I can pull it from so many different places. I think really, I mean, it's a good question, but I think a more appropriate question for me would be at this moment in life, who's my favorite? Because, you know, it really is dependent on kind of where my vibration is. And right now I've been listening a lot to K Love. She has a great platform of transparency and authenticity. Geronimo Speaks is one of my favorite poets from a wordplay perspective and kind of telling his story from the streets. I'm a big fan of Obi West, big fan of Black Ice out of Philadelphia. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And also, this might sound a little cocky, but I'm also a fan of my own work. Like, believe it or not, like I love listening to and growing in my art. Like I talk a lot about love, probably more than any other poet I've ever seen or listened to before. And I love that. I love listening to my own music, my own pieces that I've written. I draw inspiration from self, and I think we all can kind of do that too when we really dig deep into who we actually are. You'll find all the inspiration you need just inside of self. So yeah. I'm a fan of me too.
I think we should encourage that, you know, even more so, because I think everybody tends to be very, you know, humble and, you know,
self-critical too.
Yeah. But I think that is like I said, good because you get to see yourself from someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
You can grade yourself, you know. So I think that's great.
Yeah. You definitely put us on to some new names. I'm like, who? Like, let me
you won't be disappointed in any of those artists.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you should check them out. They're all amazing. K Love is on my album. Geronimo's on on my album as well. Black Ice from Philly. The first time I ever seen him perform was on HBO's Def Poetry, and I had just never seen anything like that in my life. And I remember the first time I saw K Love was on a YouTube video, sitting in her car doing a piece, and then she has another piece called $1 Million Melanin that went viral. And this is long before I met her and long before we became friends. I just knew that when I listened to her that I wanted a piece of that power, like the ability to just express yourself so freely and unapologetically. And she's saying this piece about how powerful her melanin is as a Black woman. And I'm like, man, this is the energy I want to tap into. Like, how did you get to this place where you're able to love yourself so transparently, so fearlessly, and share it on a video? And now she's one of my closest friends, and I'm very happy to say she's definitely been able to help me, improve my art, my pen, and my own transparency for sure.
Yeah. I love a lot of more modern poetry. I really hate that like Def Comedy Jam and Def Poetry Jam are things that are no longer. I think those were definitely great for the culture, and it kind of exposed me to more people that you don't really get to hear from.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's almost like poetry is underground. You know what I mean? Like not in a bad way, but like more, you have to find it. I would love for it to be more upfront or out front, for people to see, because the world needs more love. We need more of what you guys are doing.
I couldn't agree with you more. So I hear that a lot. And there's a twofold part to that. So poetry is slowly but surely making its way up the ranks, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Def Poetry was a phenomenal platform for the space that it was in at the time, because that was not happening. There was no poetry show dedicated on like a national network, for sure, especially poetry from like where we're from, like from the hood, the heart of the hood, people talking about what they actually experienced, real stories of the minority in America, right? The real stories of Black men who came up in the projects, like real stories of like fatherless boys and what that was like. And so that for a moment had its space, but now poetry is popping up in more just widely viewed places than it had at one time. Like for instance, Amanda Gorman, she did the inauguration, right? Yeah. Which we had never seen a poet ever step on the stage for an inauguration ever. Yeah. And especially spoken word poetry. And then for the first time in history this year, Jay Ivey, who is the president of the Grammys here in Chicago, has finally created a category in the Grammys just for spoken word poetry. Another thing that has never happened in history. And so there's a lot of things that are moving. A lot of hip hop artists are now using spoken word to introduce their albums. And really the call to action is we need people to push the art. Yeah. So, share the pieces, share them with your platforms and let people hear it. We're really quick to say, hey, this song or this sermon gave me life today. But we need to do the same thing with poetry and spoken word. Sometimes it's like we almost are kind of habitually keep them to ourselves. But the more we push it, the more we put it out there, the more exposure it gets. And as artists, we have to do a better job of also broadcasting what we do. Poetry has been kind of a secret community way back in the early 1900s when they would have speakeasies like in the back of a store somewhere. And nobody would know, but everybody's standing on their soapbox and they're saying their piece and there's power to the people and revolution this and revolution that. But it was quiet and kept quiet because if it was outspoken in the world, these people would get arrested for what they believed and what they thought and what they said. But now we have to kind of get past that and really start sharing it with the world and putting our soapbox in front of the entire world. You know what I mean? So we're getting there.
Did we all answer?
Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou. Tiana.
I'm like, I don't really know if I have a favorite at the moment. My favorites on everything change all the time too.
Of course.
But yeah, maybe Eros is my new favorite.
There you go.
Again, rewind. Say it again. That's right. And it don't have to be the same tomorrow, but today it's Eros, and I'm good with that. Absolutely. Great answer. My favorite answer of the night so far.
I didn't know we was in a competition though. Don't give me that.
So if you could have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Man, that's a great question. An unlimited supply of anything for the rest of my life, it would probably be energy. And I mean energy for everything, energy to love, energy to keep going, energy to just try again, energy to work. Because really, that's where we die, right? Like when we run out of energy within any specific thing, like you lose the motivation for it. And I think that if my energy supply was always full, then I'd always be able to stay on the go and always be able to create and do the things that I want to do. Even from a relationships perspective, if I had unlimited energy, that moment where I don't want to try again, I'd find it, right? You'd be willing to push a little bit harder, no matter how many heartbreaks you had, no matter how many times you were disappointed. Unlimited energy to just keep going just gives me Energizer Bunny vibes, right? And so, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I love it.
Mine was pretty similar. I was going to say motivation and money.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say focus and money.
Yeah. Now, I didn't know we could name two things. Now, I was going to say money too, but I'm like, if I said money, what if I was out of here tomorrow? Then the money don't serve me no purpose. But,
Yeah, you got the energy to go make.
Well, I got enough energy to ask y'all for some of y'all money, so I'll just keep asking.
That works. That works.
This is fair. For me, creativity. So the fact that I get to wake up every day and do something that I love, and it's one of those things that doesn't seem to want to run out, and it's fun, it's like, how do you calculate this so this looks like something no one has ever seen before?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Creativity for me.
Great answer.
So we are going to, now that we've gotten past our icebreakers, we want to learn even more about you. We know poetry is your thing, and we kind of got our audience ready with your intro video with one of your poems. So we would love if you would recite something for us. That would be amazing.
Please.
Okay. So any poem or the one specifically?
I mean, I kind of want the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's easy to give up on love, especially for those of us who've had less than favorable experiences. But I still want to be embarrassingly in love. I've heard a lot of love stories, and I've read some really good books. And I've even seen the way the TV and social media tell me that love is supposed to look. And look, I'm not trying to say that a lot of the love that we see out here in the world today is fake, but a lot of the love that we see out here today is fake. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is that I just want to get back to those days where love was great. You see, I want to be dependent on love, addicted to love, a victim of its image. Make me the very vision of love. I want love to envelop me, to develop me while I'm developing, and to avail to me its ecstasy. I want to be entrenched in love, drenched in love, dipped in love, easily convinced, no common sense. Just make me immense with love. No, I don't think y'all get it. Let me see if I can be a little more specific with my descriptions. I want the kind of love that's gonna make me like walk you to work and then just sit there and watch you while you work. And I know that probably sounds berserk, but being apart from you just won't work. So I guess I'm gonna probably just have to get a job where you work. And if they refuse to hire me, or God forbid if they ever fire me, then you probably just shouldn't go to work. Do you understand how this works? No? Okay, let's try it this way. I want the kind of love that's gonna make me use all my unlimited phone minutes in my data plan just to call you. And I realize that probably sounds like the kind of love that's gonna stalk you, because when you look through my call log on my made calls, my missed calls, and my dial calls, it's gonna be all you. In fact, every night before we cut off our lights, I wanna have to confirm before God that I was the last man that saw you. And then I wanna sleep with my eyelids rubbed up against your nice skin, so when we awaken, I could never say I made the mistake of taking my eyes off you. No, you still don't get it. I want to name all of our children after you. The boys too. And I don't care what people will say, because I think your name is great. In fact, if it were up to me, we could name every item in the world the exact same way. So I could easily say that I've had the privilege of calling your name all day. And even that doesn't accurately explain what I'm trying to say. And I know it all sounds like a fantasy. But real love is so much deeper than just the surface romance to me. Even though these words were written romantically, I want to help you understand that I'm attached to we, and I am frantically trying to prove to you that you're the perfect match for me. And I know it sounds like fairy tale writing, just fake and unlikely, but why would life with the woman most like me ever be denied me? Why would love ever choose to defy me when it knows I would never let a woman like you get by me? Queen, I want a reputation for defending you because I'm so into you. I want people to say stuff like, you better not say nothing about her, because you already know how Eros gonna get. Eros gonna trip. So they avoid forming any form of a diss about you with their lips. I want to love you so intense that they have to send out search parties when we kiss, because I can find myself getting lost in your lips. Can you see how deep in love I'm trying to get? I'm not talking about snapping pics of our exotic trips or staging amazing backgrounds when we kiss. I'm not posting no vids of how close we is just so we can boast and brag on how many hearts and likes we get. I would rather our most intimate moments just stay private. Queen, I want to love you so deep that when people do ask us what our secrets are, we just stay silent, because we fear losing this spark that we just ignited. I want to love you that much. I just want to be embarrassingly in love. No fakeness, no filters, no second thoughts, and no pretending. Let's just accept what God has given us. He had it pinned in 1 Corinthians. Let's love forever. Let's be embarrassingly in love together. Thank you all.
That was beautiful.
That was so good.
It's so hard not to start sinking in my seat. That was
that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you for letting me share. Thank you for letting me share it. I appreciate that.
It's very beautiful, and it's so beautiful to see everybody's reactions to those words too.
Yeah.
I look over in the audience, look over at Bianca, Peyton a couple times over there, but no, it's absolutely amazing.
I was like, not him sitting in the cubicle next to me.
You know, it's funny though, because when I say that poem, the reactions are always different depending on who hears it. And I think that the reality is this: like you all know how it is when we meet somebody like new for the very first time, and it seems like it's so exciting in the beginning, right? Like that early stage is like you find the time that you would normally never give to anybody else, but you'll find it for this new person that you're really, really into. You'll text more, you'll call more, you know you got a job to do, you taking calls between clients, you're doing all these things just to hear their voice. And I think that part of us really wants to feel like we can be unbridled when it comes to love. Now, obviously, we're not going to go work where the person works and do all these things, but it's just the idea of how badly we want to spend so much of our time with that person when we meet somebody that we feel like our heart is connected to. You know, and it's like, it's such a beautiful feeling in the beginning.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people...
I was going to say, I actually met my husband at work, so that did
happen. That look, see, right. So you cut out the middleman. Like, I'm just find somebody at work here already. So, you know, that's the idea behind the piece. Like, you know, I think that when we experience this Eros version of love, and that's where Eros comes from, is the idea of romantic love. It's so overwhelming and so overpowering that it kind of takes common sense out the window, so to speak. And we just want to sit there in this bliss that we've created, you know.
Is that love obtainable? Do you feel like that love is obtainable? Something that
I think that what happens is I don't think that that's honestly love, so to speak, right? I think that in the beginning, those feelings are enough to get us over the hump, right? Because like you need that, you gotta have some type of connection to draw you in, right? It's kind of like salespeople, right? They tell you like, you know, here's why you should buy this product, and you see all these things, it's got all the bells and whistles, and you bring it home and you love it, but then it doesn't always give what it needed to give. But the initial battle is getting it in your home, right? And so they got to sell it to you. It looks great on display and all these things, and That's how people present themselves. We all do. We all have a habit of sometimes presenting ourselves as these very polished and well put together individuals, and we mask our traumas and our heartbreaks and what our habits are behind these beautiful smiles and faces and great conversations. But we need some of that, because what would attract us to each other if we walked up and like, hey, my name is so-and-so, sometimes I don't flush the toilet. You don't want to hear that. Like, wait, hold on, back. I'm not trying to hear. All right? So we have to kind of give people our very best, because that's what gets us in the conversation. But I think that the longer love goes, the more it's tested, the more it's tried, the deeper it becomes. And we need the fluffy moments. There's a line in a poem I wrote about people who want to go back to where their relationship started. And it's unrealistic, because the line goes, those fluffy moments in the beginning are great, but that's not what makes us stay. It's the moments that we go out of our way to never walk away.
Yep.
It's the fact that day after day, I still wake up and I expect to see your face. So if everything was perfect, then we would be out of place, right? So the reality is that perfection is not real. It's just alluring, and it draws us in. But once we're drawn in, now the rubber meets the road. Now we got to put our money where our mouth is. How much staying power do we have in this relationship? And that's really what we need, more than the fluffy moments in the beginning. And I think that once we start to value staying power, then something very unique happens, and then we like unlock a new level of love. And that is what we're trying to obtain, not necessarily the butterflies in the beginning.
I agree. I think that a lot of times you see the relationship goals online, and it's all the fluffy stuff. Oh,
absolutely.
He bought her a car, or they're out doing this, or they're at a vacation. It's like, what about the times that you wake up and y'all mad at each other about who left all the dishes in the sink?
Yeah.
Y'all done argued the whole day, and now it's dinner time, and y'all like, okay, so what we gonna eat? Now we friends. You know what I mean? It's those moments that, need to be more, public, not public, but, more normalized,
Agreed. And I think that, so what has to happen with both spectrums of love, because we are, as a human race, we're pendulum swingers. There are people who chase only the fluffy side of love, which is why they find themselves in relationships that are very short term. Like, I like this person, this one might be the one. Last 6 months, and it's on to the next one. That continues to happen. And then you have the other group of people who sometimes have become so content with not doing any of the romantic things that they did in the beginning, that the relationship seems to stay consistently boring. And that's also dangerous, right? The goal is to somehow try to find a way to swap that, right? Where those who are in the beginning and brand new with love get an opportunity to go through some ish first, right? Go experience some stuff with each other. Like, yeah, she's beautiful, she looks good, but you haven't seen her sick yet, right? You haven't been there. When I was married for 13 years. And even now, I still value my ex-wife exponentially, right? Like, we're not together in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Ain't no situationships or nothing, but I still value her because I was there with her when she was in a hospital facing death. Right. I remember that. And I can never forget that for the rest of my life. My children would never be able to talk crazy to their mother or anything, because there's still a big part of me that loves her, because we went through it. Right. We experienced it. We experienced financial ruin at times. We experienced traveling the world together. We experienced arguing when we were in the Dominican Republic. We've argued in different parts of this world. Right. Like, and so those things are important, regardless of what that fluffy stuff is. There's no staying power there, because you got to go through it. Yeah. And once you've gone through it, now you have a responsibility, if you're going to stay together, to still manifest and develop romance. What makes him smile? What makes her feel good? Right? You still have a responsibility to each other, because we give all this great stuff to people we barely know, but we won't even touch the surface with people we've been with for years. And that's dangerous. That's how the drift starts to happen, in my opinion.
I feel like a lot of the younger generation doesn't have a lot of what you're discussing. Well, I take that back. I'm starting to see a little bit more of it with the younger generation, but I feel like a lot of them are temporary. A lot of them are, you do one thing I don't like and that's it. There isn't much, staying power, stay together, let's figure it out. Or it isn't enough discovery in the beginning to know if this is going to be a compatible person for you. I think a lot of people get caught up in the checking the boxes. He got this car, he got this job, he's this, he's that, and vice versa. She's this, she's that, versus finding out if that person is really compatible with you.
Absolutely. I think you could not be any more spot on than what you just said. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible says that prettiness may be false, charm may be false, and prettiness may be in vain, but the secret person of the heart lasts forever. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a moment in life where we're not going to look as good. There's going to be a moment in life where we won't be in phenomenal shape anymore, where our jokes won't give what they used to give, where our teeth aren't as bright and shiny or even there anymore, right? And if we focus so heavily on this superficial idea of what love looks like, the way it dresses, the way it smells, the romantic trips and things, if we focus so much on that, we really miss the greater point of love, right? Love is, like the song goes, love is gonna last. Love is gonna last. But if it doesn't last, then it's not really love, because God is love and God is forever. Mm-hmm. Right? So love, real true love, consistent love, it doesn't fade. And I think that in this microwave generation, it's so easy to walk away from something just because you don't feel the vibe. But we treat our jobs, our relationships, and everything the same way. Oh, you know what I'm saying? If you're not doing me, you're not making me feel good, I got to walk away. Well, how does that teach you conflict resolution? How does that teach you to face something that's uncomfortable? And those of us who've got some miles on us, we know, like, life is going to give you some moments where you can't walk away from it. Yeah, like, you're going to have to sit there and face it.
For sure.
So the idea that I'm just going to find somebody else that matches my vibe and we're going to be happy for the rest of our lives without any low moments is completely, it's childish, it's immature, it's unrealistic, and it ill prepares us for what this life is really about. So, yeah, the pendulum is swung completely the other way. And back in our parents' generation and their parents' generation, some of them stayed together too long.
Yeah.
Grandpa Earl had 7 families across town, but at that time, it was also a different socioeconomic environment because grandma needed his money to take care of the kids she had. So she couldn't just divorce and walk away. It wasn't that easy. But on the same token, they stayed together a lot longer, but it was also some very toxic situations that shouldn't have stayed together that long. And now we swung the pendulum the complete other way, which is the minute we get uncomfortable, we walk away. Mm-hmm. We gotta stop going all the way. My ex-wife used to always say this: we go from A to Z, and we never find a way to get to the middle letter. And that's really what it's about. And once you go, just like a real pendulum, the reason we swing so far away from one thing to the other is because that's how far we are away from God. And when we dig deeper and get closer to God, I believe as you go up the pendulum, the top of the pendulum hardly moves one way or the other. It's always the bottom of the pendulum that swings the furthest, because that's our lowest vibration. But as we go up inside of ourselves and we start to learn organically who we really are, we start to have staying power. And the further up we go, the more we can hold fast. And I think that's really, what love needs.
Very well. And I wholeheartedly agree.
Absolutely. The closer you get to God, this clarity,
I say.
How did you find poetry? Like, how did it start?
So I was 17 years old, and I took a British literature class in high school. Okay. And at that time, we were studying Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven. I'm sure you guys all have heard that poem. We all had to study it at some point. And it was so dark and sad. And I don't know if you guys know much about Edgar Allan Poe, but he actually married his cousin, who was 15 years old. And it's just really dark and just crazy stuff. And I used to write very similar poetry, not about marrying my cousin, but just about dark things in general. And every poem I wrote had death in it or something, but it was a way for me to kind of emotionally dump. So I grew up without my dad. And for many years, I struggled with my own identity. who I was and his absence in my life and that void. And so I wrote a lot of angry poetry. And then one day I go home and Deaf Poetry comes on HBO. And I see Emerald Green from Chicago get on stage, and she does this poem called Ready for Love. And I was like, what magic is this? This is unbelievable. And then after Emerald Green, I saw Kanye West and a young Mos Def and, Black Ice and Amir Suleiman and Felicia Rashad and all these celebrities getting on stage sharing poetry. And I told myself, I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to get on stages and I'm going to write, and people are going to hear me and they're going to listen to me, and I'm going to perform all over the world. And I was just 17 years old, just some pipe dream for a kid at the time. But then it happened, right? And so I just kept writing, and now we look up almost 20 years later, and I've traveled the world for this gift through the grace of God, and I've sat on the same stages with those people I used to watch on HBO, and through the grace of God, it's become a source of life for me, and I couldn't be any more happy than I am to be able to share this gift with the world.
That's so amazing that, at a young age where a lot of young men aren't able to use their voice or express themselves, or they don't even know how to express themselves or have an outlet, that you found poetry, because that gave you that voice that, you didn't think you had.
As a kid, though, I was a bit different from most kids my age. I was always a little more sensitive than other guys my age. But because I was born in Inglewood, sensitivity was a negative trait to have.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't necessarily show that I was afraid. Like, I grew up in the worst hoods in Chicago. Like, my mom, we struggled a lot. My mom did her best, but we moved a lot, probably 9 times before I turned 17. And every hood you had to just kind of learn to act tough. And so one thing I'd always been good with was the gift of gab. I could pretend like I was tough, but sometimes they're going to pull your card. And so people would not lose, fight after fight after fight, until finally I'm like, oh, there's enough of this. I'm going to have to learn how to use these hands. And so eventually I learned how to defend myself, but always deep down, there was this very sensitive kid inside of me. And I always wanted to allow that kid to be expressive. And so first I started doing hip hop and rapping in the lunchroom with one of my close friends, Bird. And rapping was accepted because everybody in the hood should rap, right? You're like, you're a young Black kid, you should be rapping, right? You can't be coming to the lunchroom table with poetry. And so I came and I was doing bars, and they loved that. And then I got a measure of popularity in high school. Then I started sharing poetry, spoken word style, and it just caught fire. One of the coolest things now is that when I throw shows in different states, or if I'm throwing a show here locally, looking out in the crowd and seeing people who I went to high school with, or when they'll come up to me and like ask me to sign one of my albums or buy one of my shirts, or they'll inbox me like, man, I remember when you were doing poetry here or here. And it's just like, it's almost surreal for me, like just kind of comes back full circle. So yeah.
That's very cool. It's almost like you're demanding that. I love to hear when people find their passion and what they feel like their life is being led to do. You in the very early stages have this attitude of, I'm gonna do that one day. And I think without that, is it really truly your passion? But I love that. And even in the mix of as you're going through it and learning, this is how I want to perform when I'm on the stage. You still have that passion to continue on and do it.
Yeah. So 100%. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So another question. So I don't know if is it currently a battle between Eros and the Prince of Poetry? Or are you have you decided on a name, or are these people two different people, two different personalities? How does that work?
That's a great question. No, they're the same person. So the Prince of Poetry was a name I gave myself. Well, I thought, okay, so I know I've never shared this, so you guys are getting the exclusive right here. So I'm gonna tell you.
What is that?
I thought Prince of Poetry was such a humble name. And I was so excited to share why I came up with it. So people will say, why you name yourself the Prince of Poetry? Because Eros is fairly new. But I said, well, I call myself the Prince of Poetry because all the people who wrote, this is literally my script. I've been saying this since I was 18. All the people who wrote poetry before us were the kings and queens. And because I come up under their tutelage, I'm going to always be a prince of the art, right? So Prince of Poetry.
Right.
But then it got awkward because I would go on like tours or go on the road with like other artists and people like, what's your name? Oh, I'm Geronimo Speaks, or I'm K Love, or I'm, Emerald Green. And their names were so quick and catchy. And I'm like, I'm the Prince of Poetry. There's no way to shorten that. It's just like this extra long name. I'm okay. Nice to meet you, the Prince of Poetry. Like, how does that even work? Everybody else's name sounds like a regular name, and I'm just like, I probably should change my name. And nothing about what I talked about had anything remotely to do with being a prince. It was just poetry, and so the name Eros came along because if you listen to my poems, if you listen to my album, if you read my books, you'll see that I talk a lot about romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about love, period. Self-love, all four facets of love as it's explained in the Bible, which is, storge, philia, agape, and eros love. But I spend most of my time talking about love between two spirits, two people. And I felt Eros made so much sense because when you think of me, you should think of a feeling that I'm encouraging you to develop. Inside of my poem. And so Eros now is the name. The Prince of Poetry now is just more of the title. So it's Eros, the Prince of Poetry.
That was definitely, your name was definitely interesting. That was going to be something I brought up because when I looked it up, it was like one of the 4 types of love. It's the erotic, passionate love.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, that's a little deep.
Yeah.
But
it's also the Greek god of love. So a lot of people take the Greek approach to it. But I remember a pastor came up to me one time. I was performing at his church, and he saw Eros on my shirt. He's like, "Oh, you believe in the Greek god of love?" And he was cracking a joke. But I actually use this as a teaching point. Like, well, actually, scripturally, Eros is in the Bible. It's a Hebrew word meaning love, right? And so then I talked about Greek word meaning love. So eros, philia, storge, and agape. And he was like, oh yeah, that's right. So it's one of the four versions of love. It's not just based on Greek mythology. It's actually, one of the versions that we show. And I think that really Eros love is a big part of the reason why a lot of us are breathing air today, because our parents fell in love or had a moment of love and they created us. And so this is the topic of love that I could talk about all day.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's beautiful. I know you've mentioned a couple of times, like relationships that we've seen growing up, and I've seen like my parents, other family members who have, went through the process of having children, and now the children are gone, and they're still together. I attribute a lot of my feelings about love around my parents because they're so cute and they're still together, and they hold hands when no one's watching. They fight, and it's funny. That's definitely for me like the kind of love that I'm looking for. Do you find that love is fearful? Like, are you fearful of love? Can you have one without the other?
Well, love itself it's impossible for love to be fearful. Mm-hmm. That would be like saying God is fearful. Mm-hmm. What people are afraid of is not love. They're afraid of losing it, right? And like a lot of people will say things like, love hurts, or, love, it did this to me, or I let myself fall in love. And really, love is never the enemy. It's always the absence of love. Always. Mm-hmm. If two people are really, truly in their bag when it comes to love, there is no fear there. There is nothing but safety and confidence and excitement in that space. But what scares people is when they fall in love and it's not reciprocated, when it's one-sided. And now that's scary. That's where the fear kicks in. And now it's not, I'm scared of how in love I am. You're scared of how you believe that being this heavily in love is getting ready to hurt you. But if two people are madly in love, they're not sitting there exercising their fear. They're living in bliss in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think it's impossible though for us to truly, like, not impossible, but it's rare that we can find ourselves in love without fear because we have so many traumas. We have so many bad experiences. We have so many moments where we saw two people who claim to be in love fail. We watched it. TV shows show it. Movies. We hear it on songs. So every time we get more confirmation of somebody breaking up, it gives us confirmation bias that love ain't real or it don't last. And so people become critical and they become cynical of the idea of love because we've seen so many stories gone bad. Right? You take any couple that people used to call goals, like Will and Jada. I remember back in the day, like even Alicia Keys has that song, like, I want to love like Will and Jada. And we was like, oh yeah, this is great. And then all that scandal and all this crazy stuff starts coming out. And now people are like, see, that's why I don't want to do it. They immediately just go inside their trauma burrows because it's a safe space. But I think that we have to first learn to address where those traumas come from, learn to not let them have as much control over us, so we can learn to love, even in spaces where it may not last forever. Because the minute that we take love, and I want to make sure I say this correctly, love is only in the now. It is not tomorrow. It is not yesterday. Love is right now. And what happens with love while we have it right now, we tell ourselves, I wonder if I'll have this tomorrow. And when we think about if we're going to have love tomorrow, then we cannot value it while it's right here, right now. Yeah. And what often happens is we're so focused on tomorrow that we can't learn to value the now. Mm-hmm. And if you're fearful of love, you're not living in it. You're focused on a place and time that doesn't exist. And that's how I see that.
Well said.
You know what I wanted to know? What inspires your pieces? Like an embarrassingly in love. Like, was there a situation, or how do you get inspired to write the pieces?
Uh-oh.
You know, I don't like, I tried, So I want to try to answer this as
diplomatically as you can.
Yeah. So I wrote Embarrassingly in Love when I was probably at my lowest from a heartbreak standpoint. Mm. And I wrote it actually, so what most people don't know about that poem, it's funny when you listen to Embarrassingly in Love, because people are like, oh yeah, I love that. That's right. It gives everybody butterflies. But the truth of the matter is I wrote Embarrassingly in Love when I least believed in it. Mm. I wrote it as like a cool little love story, like some idea that doesn't really exist.
An idea. Mm-hmm.
And so it was almost like this is my manifestation of what I would like it to feel like. This love that was so safe and so protecting, and you know, it just covered you and you just wanted to spend all your time around it. And that was at a time where I felt like I was experiencing anything but that. And so what inspires my other pieces, though, typically is that very feeling of love. Like I talk about it so much. I think that this world has such a strong agenda of hatred. Mm-hmm. And it is my job. I am here on earth to thwart that agenda. And the gift God gave me to do that is through poetry. And so that's my calling. And I'm supposed to keep writing about it until I don't have any more ink in any of the pens that I can find, and my hands don't work anymore, and my voice stops working, and that's when I'll stop. But until then, I have to do this.
You found your purpose.
That's beautiful.
Oh, I don't know if this is a quick question to ask, but I'm sure our audience will want to know, are you currently in a relationship? Like, are you in the now of love and all that it encompasses in your
you're asking the hard questions, huh? Okay, so you've been silent this whole time, but now you're trying to get to the nitty-gritty. All right.
He's known as the silent killer. So.
Right, exactly. So I am experiencing, I have been dating, and I am experiencing the now with love. Every situation I've ever dated, any situation I've ever dated, I've tried to be present. But After my divorce, I made a lot of mistakes. I was also a pendulum swinger. I did everything I could to try to find relationships that were nothing like what I had experienced, what I felt like for 13 years. And what I realized was I wasn't just running away from what I didn't like about my ex-wife. I was also running away from what I didn't like about me. And I tried to find relationships that made it easy for me to escape the me that I was, that I didn't want to admit that I was. So for the first time now, I've done some of the real work. And I've really gotten a chance to know who I am. And in this space of love now, then yeah, I'm absolutely living in the now. I'm enjoying it and I'm learning. I'm not as quick to brag on my own goodness. That's something I felt myself doing a lot when I was married the first time. I felt like I always wanted people to know how great of a husband I was. But now I'm not focused on selling it to anyone. I'm just focused on being a good mate. And that's all I care about. I don't care about my own viewpoint of me being a good mate. I want the person that I'm with to believe that I'm a good mate. And their opinion is the one that matters here. But first, you have to trust their opinions. And so I've been really working on finding someone whose opinions I can trust, who doesn't, gaslight me or, enjoy playing victim. All those things are important, but you cannot get to that place. I could not get to that place until I first enrolled in therapy and started to heal myself. And then I was in the better position to pick.
Awesome. I think it's also awesome that you mentioned that you enrolled in therapy, because not only is therapy taboo in the Black community, there's even a bigger taboo around Black men in therapy. So if you don't mind elaborating on that a little bit, how did you, was this your first experience with therapy, or has you also had to like break through that stigma of therapy is for white people type of thing?
My sister was killed last year in June, and it was the lowest I had ever felt in my life. She was murdered on 62nd and Artesian. Her name is Nyoka Bowie. I try to mention my sister's name whenever I can. And I remember how murderous I felt. And it's strange. It's rare for me to feel murderous, like being a murderous rage, because I speak so much on love and forgiveness and all these things. And so when Nyoka was killed, I was in a low space. And I knew I needed to talk to somebody. And I was dealing with, my own insecurities. I was at the height of my divorce, and I was paying, God knows, $20,000, plus in attorney fees. I was at risk of losing my home. It was at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. My daughter was living with me full time. We were, struggling for food. I was a broker doing insurance over the road at that time, and I just wasn't able to land any deals. It was just, everything was just, the walls were just crashing in. And everything I touched, it felt like I was failing at everything. And I knew that the issue was not anything outside of self. The issue was me. I was self-destructing on the inside. So how could I create anything when I'm destroying everything? So I had to enroll in therapy and try to get to the heart of what was I really feeling. I hadn't properly processed grief. I had to, go to the morgue to identify my sister's body. I had, just a year prior to that, buried my grandmother, and I wrote her obituary. And then a month prior to that, my cousin, he died in prison. He was only 34 years old. And then, it was just like thing after thing after thing after thing. And there was just so many people that we were losing. And so I just had to first admit to myself that, I'm not that strong.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, hey, nobody ever checks on the strong friend. That's the thing we say. And now it's so trendy and so cliche for people to say it. But the truth of the matter is that all of us can break.
Yeah.
Every single one of us. Ain't no strong, ain't no weak. We're just people.
Yeah.
And we're going to have strong moments. We're going to have weak moments. And yes, it's good. You can get through some of your weak moments that would have broke other people. But those people can still rise up and get past it. And so I had to just do what it took. What's strong is doing what it takes to refortify yourself.
Absolutely.
That's where the strength is. Lying to yourself and pretending to just keep going and nothing impacts you and nothing phases you and saying all is well, I'm good. That's not strength. Those are words.
Mm-hmm.
But actually doing the work to refortify yourself is important to me. And so that's where I am in life now. You know, I'm just constantly refortifying myself, reteaching myself, unlearning bad habits and unpacking the things that, you know, got me in that low space in the first place.
Well, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad that, you know, you were able to tap into therapy. It's something that, you know, we've also had to embrace as well for, you know, different various reasons. Like you said, we all grew up in these communities and, you know, and just in our culture period of having to be strong, tough, and not, you know, deal with feelings and emotions and, you know, just bury that stuff and keep it moving and, you know, keep that strong front. But I like the older I get, the the things that I've learned is also that I'm not as you know, I have thought I was, or that other people may have perceived me to be. And it's okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There was a point in time where I just had an adverse reaction to being called strong. Like, it just pissed me off to my core because
Yep.
it's like, I don't want to be strong. I help me. Like,
yeah,
I want to be soft. I want to be like nurtured. Like,
right,
help.
right.
So, yeah, it was definitely a tough moment in my life. You spoke about losing your sister. That was during the time I mentioned I was married. My husband passed in 2019.
I'm so
And
sorry.
yeah, thank you. I'm sorry to hear about your sister as well.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
literally a week later, I went to therapy, and the therapist was like, your husband just died. And I was like, I know if I'm not here, it's going to go all the way bad. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
going to go all the way bad for me.
Yeah.
So, just having that self reflection of being able to say, look, I need it. I need help. I need
Yep.
help. And getting that help is, you know, something that I'm a champion for. Like, do it.
That's so strong.
Yeah.
Like being honest with yourself is often the thing that we struggle with the most because we paint ourselves the world a certain way because we're kind of programmed to do that. But then we also paint ourselves to ourselves a certain way. Like
Mm-hmm.
we want to tell ourselves that we're something that we're not often. Like we imagine what we'd like to be, and then we convince ourselves that that's what we are. But
Mhm.
you really aren't that until you are that, right? And so you have to allow yourself the room to become the thing that you want to be. You can't just wake up one day and say, I'm already that, so I don't have to do any work behind it. No, you do, right? And so what is that work? And being
I
strong is the ability. I'm
I
sorry, go
think
ahead.
that point is the living in the moment thing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
sometimes we fight battles of things that we haven't even gone through yet, whether it's
100%.
a possible test result or it's looking like the recession's coming, so layoffs may be coming.
Yeah,
I'm learning to, and I'm definitely not there, but I'm learning to live in the moment a lot
yeah,
more because the energy that we waste, thinking about what could possibly happen, um,
yes,
is wasted energy when something may not even happen. Now you're like
100%.
concentrated on what could have been.
For
Um,
nothing,
to
for
that
nothing.
point, in love, you have to do the same. You have to, and life, you have to live your life in the moment, no matter what, until you get that news or, you know, till something happens. So,
Yeah, it reminds me of the scripture that says, don't worry about what you're going to eat or drink or what you're going to put on. And then after that, my favorite part of that scripture is the latter part of the verse where it says, sufficient for each day is its own worries.
Right.
So what we tend to do though is we go remember what stressed us out yesterday. Then we think about what we're going to worry about for tomorrow and we bring it all into today. Well, we can't do nothing about what already happened. What happened is right where it belongs, in the past. And we can't even get tomorrow because we don't even know if we're going to be here tomorrow.
Right.
So sufficient for today is enough things to deal with. And although we know that, we don't always apply our wisdom to moving in that space. We still try to deal with tomorrow's issues now. And then we revisit yesterday's woes today, so we never get a chance to get to today. Because we're so busy chewing on meals that are long gone or that we've not even had a chance to eat yet. Yeah. So 100% agree.
Yeah.
Well, now would be a perfect time for us to ask if you would do another poem for us.
Sure, I would.
Before we do that, okay, I'm going to be greedy. Let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
How do you demonstrate love?
Great question. So I believe that we should all become polyglots with love. And the term polyglot is just a fancy way of saying multilingual, right? So if a person speaks multiple languages, anybody who speaks more than one language is immediately a bigger asset than someone who speaks just one. Yeah. Because now you're able to communicate to a broader scope of people. We should be the same way with love. We're also focused on what's my love language. I like gifts or acts of service or words of affirmation or quality time or physical touch. And we get so focused on which of these love languages are the best. Like, I don't care about the gifts, spend time with me. Or I don't care about you spending time with me, hold my hand. Or I don't care about that, just tell me that you love me. Or if you see I got a deadline I'm trying to meet, come in my office and staple some pamphlets together for me. Acts of service. And so all those things are great. But the way I try my best to demonstrate love is I work very diligently to do all of them. Every single one. And I believe that just because a person's preference is one thing doesn't mean they shouldn't try to get a chance. They shouldn't get the chance to experience all of them. Yes, she may love acts of service, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't need flowers. And maybe she don't like flowers. Maybe she like coffee mugs. Get her those. Shout out to the coffee business getting ready to come to the colonnade soon. Coming soon. Can't wait for that. But yeah, you get her or him exactly what you know speaks to their spirit and more. Right? And that's God, right? God doesn't just give us just the thing we ask for. He gives us so much more. Think about it. Like, you prayed for something for so long. God, please give me this. I want this so bad. And then you get it and you're happy. And the sun is shining. You didn't ask for that sun to shine, but it's still given to you. And what a gift that is. And that's how we should move in love. We shouldn't focus so solely on providing our mates with just this one thing they ask for. Give them everything. Give them all of it. And hopefully you find somebody who moves in a similar vibration, who wants to give you the same thing.
Yep.
And that is the ultimate prayer, because selfishly as humans, nobody wants to love without reciprocity. Nobody wants to love just for the sake of love. And I don't care what anybody says. People love to say, like, well, you ain't loving, if you did it just to get something, then that's not really real love, whatever. Like, ain't nobody trying to hear that. As human beings, it is in our nature to want to receive back something for what we give. That is human nature. Now, it doesn't mean you should selfishly do things just to get something. But in the reality is, if I'm going to love on you, I at least want to feel loved on back. And that's just human nature. So be a polyglot. Give everything you can. Learn multiple love languages. And that's how I try to demonstrate my love in every way I can. I'm going to tell you I love you. I'm going to kiss you. I'm going to hug you. I'm going to buy you flowers. I'm going to work with you at work. And, I'm going to spend quality time with you. We're going to sit up and we're going to watch some movies together. And I'm going to cook dinner, like those are the things I enjoy doing, but I also enjoy having those things done back for me.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think all of my love languages are all of them too.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. Now, Bianca, I'm sorry.
Deanna, did you have something else?
No, I thought we were going to let him give us another poem.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to let you all tell me what I should talk about. So we can do a poem about intimacy. We can do a poem about heartbreak. We can do poems about toxic relationships.
Let's keep it lovingly. Let's do the intimacy.
Yeah.
Intimacy, okay. So this is a poem I wrote called Last Night. Last night, Wow. Last night, how? Last night we howled. The way we make love felt zealous. It was like we could even make the angels jealous. You see, they've never seen two human beings who can fly without wings or ascend to heights that not even the angels have ever been. We were intimate. And there was a certain flavor in your favor, like I was eating Intamins. No thoughts of ending it even when we finished it. I was inside of you. I sat and had a conversation with your lower vibrations. I talked to your traumas. I even spoke to your subconscious about everything that makes you self-conscious. And you said, Eros, now that you're inside of me, I need you to learn to love every single side of me. You said, do more than have sex with this body. I need you to love me on a level more godly. My body be where God be. You see, having access to you physically was really just the smallest part of it. You've been with men who loved your shape, but that doesn't mean they could differentiate when you were bent out of it. That's why every time love started, you were always stopping it. That's why you took your open heart and you put a lock on it because you needed to feel secure. So you boxed your love behind a metal door. Safe. But that's not where you wanted it to stay. But you hadn't yet found a better place. So look at us. Here we lay, sitting centimeters apart, hands on each other's hearts. I pump my love into your chest while giving you my breath. We call that CPR. See, we are still recovering. And this is where our deepest love is. We were the first ones to discover it. No Christopher Columbus. We laughed at your other lovers. They couldn't find your spot with a compass. There is so much more it encompasses. But baby, we accomplished it. And the moon watched us with envy as we took full advantage of the nighttime. It felt like it lasted a lifetime. You haven't made love until you've made love to your lifeline. I swear to God, I'm gonna wife mine. Have you ever had sex so good you had to sit and write lines while sipping white wine? We walk a fine line between flesh and spirit. I believe we rekindled our ancestors when we slept together. And the climax lasted forever. I believe we came again when we exited each other. No secret lovers, we love out loud. Last night, wow. Last night, how? Last night we howled, we gave each other our best. You ever manifest during sex? Process your pain? Sex after that is never the same. It's intense and insane. There is no rain made to extinguish twin flames. We bear all the heavens erupt in applause, proud of our cause, because so many people focus on the physical that they don't seem to realize that sex is spiritual. But who the hell cares about other people when we sit here blessed enough to make love to our equal? We are all yearning for that. I believe it's worth a lifetime searching for that. And if I could never take another breath after the fact, it would have all been worth it for that. Last night, wow.
That was really good. I'm trying not to sink in my seat, but I just only God is holding me up. Okay, that was absolutely beautiful. That was absolutely amazing. And thank you so much for coming on our show and literally just simplifying love. Like you simplified it. You made it make sense. So I hope a lot of people hear this message, hear your spoken word, and realize love is not as complicated as it seems.
Not now.
So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Healing for people as well to, hear this and realize that, for people who feel like you mentioned love is hard or love is whatever, people say typically like love hurts and things like that. This is definitely healing for people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've done our job. You all asked great questions. Shelly, Deanna, Bianca, I appreciate you all. You all are
Absolutely.
all just beautiful spirits, and just thank you for having me. Thank you for your smiles. Thank you for your great questions. Thank you for your energy. This is the kind of dialogue that the world needs to see. These are the conversations we should all be having. I believe that this is part of our responsibilities as human beings, is to create a better world. And, people can't be what they can't see. So thank you
Yeah,
all for creating this.
yeah.
And
That was a word right there.
If you have any upcoming event or show that they could come check you out.
Yes, I am so glad you asked. So, me and Geronimo Speaks are throwing the second in history event. We threw the first one in October. This is the second time it's ever been done. We're throwing an event at the Sears Tower, aka the Willis Tower, February 11th on the 66th floor in the Michigan Room. It's a Valentine's Day show / Aquarius Gala. Our birthdays are both in February. Mine is February 9th. His is February the 7th. And we're going to do Valentine's Day with a spin. It's not for couples and just for people who are booed up. We're going to use the night as a way to just celebrate the idea and the ideals we have around love. And we're going to celebrate every single person in this room. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be a dress to impress event, cocktail attire, after 5 dress, 3-course dinner, cash bar. We got some poets from Deaf Poetry coming in, Emerald Green, Peabody Award winner Abyss, Mara Love, me, Geronimo Speaks, the Javon Watson Band, live DJ, live music. It's going to be an absolutely amazing night of poetry, love, and self-reflection. So if you all are able to make it, I will be so happy to see you in the building. I'm very excited about that. But if you're not able to make it, for now, you can just download my album, the Love Her album, which is streaming everywhere on every platform. It's called the Love Her album. Love Her is one word. And it just basically embodies the essence of woman and how we need to learn to love women in every facet that they exist in, from our daughters to our mothers to our significant others to our sisters, and in every essence that a woman can exist in.
And the event you're having, tell people where they can buy tickets.
Yes, they can go on Eventbrite and just search A Lovely Night Above the Lights. A Lovely Night Above the Lights. And all tickets are there right on Eventbrite. There are group packages available. There are couples nights. There are single tickets. There are sponsorship packages that can be purchased. So if you guys want to come and check us out, feel free to do so.
Yes, we will. I hate to make a commitment before I check in with the team, but
Right.
I think I must find myself in the place. Okay, so
That's right. That's right.
Where can our audience find you on social media?
Yeah, great question. So I am the Prince of Poetry everywhere. You can Google me. You can find me on TikTok at the Prince of Poetry, Facebook at the Prince of Poetry. You can find me on Instagram at the Prince of Poetry. You can find me on Cash App at Eros the Poet. I'm on Cash App the most. You can feel free to reach out to me anytime there. But no, seriously. You can also find my books on Amazon. And again, my music is streaming everywhere you find music. So just Google the Prince of Poetry. All my social media will come up. You'll find me.
Wonderful.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you again for coming on our show. We hope to have you on again very soon.
Looking forward to it.
Yes. So, don't go too far.
I won't. Thank you for having me, ladies. God bless you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Well, that was amazing.
Wasn't it? It was so great. I loved the conversation.
Yes.
Loved the conversation. The poems were out of this world.
Yeah. I was thinking in my seat. I'm trying to hold myself up, but I'm like, oh,
You're right.
I'm the weak one. Here I go.
She about to start crying like that. Silly
There was some tears. Oh, I'm like, oh Lord, how do we keep it? But he is absolutely amazing. Like I was saying, when he was on screen, that he simply puts love, and I think that was just clarifying, and to hear it come from a male,
Mm-hmm.
love is not complicated, it's basically
it don't even have to be. It is plain.
It's just not. It's just people that make it complicated or difficult or whatever. Then it's not love. It's just the people that either misuse it, misrepresent it,
or are fearful of it. So, I think people need to have more confidence when it comes to love, because while the story may not end, the way that you would rather it end with this person you are in love with, maybe that is for the better, maybe that is for the better of your life. So your heart can open up to where your heart should be. But yeah, absolutely amazing guess.
Yeah, I wonder if he would write us a poem, or I could see incorporated in events that we throw or something.
Oh, I was thinking that in my head. I wasn't gonna say it out loud. I was like,
I said it. I told him in the beginning.
I
told him in the beginning, like, we're doing pop-ups and things like that, and he would be, amazing. When he was at LaShonda's wine opening, he was able to, her wine tasting, he was able to, stop the room, and women over wine, and there were men there too. But it was just enlightening, and it's always really enlightening to see that coming from a male.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you, Kelly.
We definitely appreciate you guys always supporting. Definitely go check out Eros. He mentioned the event that he has coming up. Check him out on all his social media. And as we say in parting,
keep it brewing.
Keep it brewing.
Brewing.